They worked hard with people to bring to make sure they got those payments coming in. They helped people get the funding to go on and get an education. They performed a service, and they minimized the losses, the student loan program. Iowa and many other states, for that matter. But George Miller of California and a number of others decided we really can't trust the private sector to provide student loans, so we'll take it over. Well, 3 years ago, they took a bite out of that apple and took a hold of part of the student loan program in America and passed it here in the House and in the Senate. And then the coup de grace came in the reconciliation package that came from the Senate. There was the one that came that had to do with the last component of Obamacare that I spoke about 40 minutes ago, Mr. Speaker. The reconciliation plan has in it the elimination of private sector student loans. All of them now go through the United States Department of Education. The federal government has taken over all of the student loans in America. Now, I don't know if anybody can give me an example of when the federal government got involved in a business to provide more competition and didn't end up swallowing it all up. But I can tell you two definitive answers here that I've seen in my lifetime. Flood insurance. When I entered high school, 0% of the flood insurance in America was government. 100% was private. Well, about the time I got out of high school or some years after that, 100% of the flood insurance in America is government. There is no private sector in it at all. Zero. They wiped out the private sector competition in flood insurance. And then we see it happen with the student loan program. Again, under the same rules, we'll provide some competition. We don't think there's a legitimate marketplace. We'll get some competition so that the government can compete against the private sector. We'll get the private sector to be honest. Well, no, they got the private sector to be gone. They legislated the private sector out of existence and gave over the entire student loan program to the Department of Education. And here we are with Obamacare. Obamacare. President of the United States said he just wants to provide one more competitor for insurance, for health insurance for the people in America. I don't know that he would have answered the question, but the White House press corps failed us time and time again. A number of questions I would like to ask him is, Mr. President, how many insurance companies exist in the United States of America when you make the statement that we need more competition? If he knew the answer and gave an honest one, it would have been 1,300. 1,300 health insurance companies in America providing health insurance for a large percentage of Americans. 85% or more of us are satisfied with what we had. And of those 1,300 companies, they produced in the aggregate of 100,000 policy varieties that the health insurance consumer could evaluate in order to buy the policy of their choice. And the president wanted more competition. 1,300 companies is not enough. 1,300 companies is not enough. 100,000 policies are not enough. Let's have 1,301 companies and 100,010 or 12 policies available. That would keep the rest of them honest, right? Don't we know this? Haven't we seen enough of this? Haven't we seen the flood insurance program taken over by the federal government? Haven't we seen the federal government swallow up and nationalize 3 large investment banks? AIG, the insurance company, to the tune of $180 billion. Taking over the balance of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and making you, the taxpayer, and you are a taxpayer, Mr. Speaker, liable for a contingent liability of $5.5 trillion. 3 large investment banks, AIG, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, now we're to General Motors and Chrysler, another couple of Fortune 500 companies, swallowed up by the federal government, shares ripped out of the hands of the secured creditors and handed over on a silver platter to the trade unions, who had no investment, who had no risk, who made no concessions. 17.5% of General Motors owned now by the unions. The secured creditors aced out And the White House dictated the terms into the bankruptcy court, at least for Chrysler, and very likely General Motors. But we have sworn testimony on Chrysler that the terms going in were dictated by the federal government. The terms going out were exactly the terms dictated by the federal government. Yes, there were hearings, there were witnesses in the bankruptcy court, but not one component of the bankruptcy of Chrysler, not one piece of it was changed as a result of the sworn testimony before the bankruptcy hearing. The federal government going in evaluated and assessed the asset value of Chrysler. They were the only ones that were evaluating the asset value of Chrysler going in. They took the secured creditors and ripped their assets out of their hands, handed them over to the unions, and in the tail end of the bankruptcy, who's the only buyer? Federal government. Federal government appraises it going in, sets the terms of the bankruptcy. No amount of testimony changes anything. The bankruptcy court accepted the dictates of the president or his people. And on the other end, the only buyer is the federal government, who, in their magnanimity, hands over shares again to the United Auto Workers. This is free enterprise capitalism. This qualifies for the flashcard of what drives the economy in America. I don't think so, Mr. Speaker, and I'm not done. 3 large investment banks, AIG, the insurance company, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, General Motors, Chrysler, the student loan program, that comes to more than a third of the private sector activity, according to Professor Boyles at Arizona State University. And along comes Obamacare. Obamacare. The nationalization of all of these entities, all Fortune 500 companies. And now we come to the nationalization, Mr. Speaker, of your skin, and everything inside it, taken over by the federal government. And the very taxation of the outside started the 1st of July. If you walk into a tanning salon in America, 10% of that goes to Uncle Sam to help pay for Obamacare, which was going to be some kind of revenue-saving operation. We need to, Mr. Speaker, repeal this Obamacare. We need to pull it out by the roots. I have, in conjunction with Michelle Bachmann, worked intensively to repeal Obamacare. She introduced a repeal on the first day. I introduced a repeal on the first week. We have a discharge petition at the well. That's discharge petition number 11. We have at least 136 signatures on it. I wouldn't be surprised if that went over 140. We're on our way to 218 signatures to repeal Obamacare. A discharge petition can circumvent a block by the Speaker. If 218 signatures appear on discharge petition number 11, that means Obamacare comes to the floor of the House, where it would certainly be repealed in the House, however difficult it is to get it through the Senate. We need it gone. We need to put an end to Obamacare in America. We have to pull it out by the roots, lock, stock, and barrel, not one vestige, not one particle of DNA of Obamacare left behind. Obamacare has become a malignant tumor, and it threatens to metastasize on this free people, this formerly free people. And if we're to have the vitality that comes from American liberty, we can't be living with the dependency that's created by Obamacare. And Mr. Speaker, I pledge my strongest effort to repeal Obamacare completely and entirely, to rip it out by the roots, to quote the last few words of the repeal bill that is the discharge petition, as if it had never been enacted. Close quote. So, Mr. Speaker, the American people demand the repeal of Obamacare. I demand the repeal of Obamacare. I ask my colleagues to join in the repeal of Obamacare and to sign on to discharge petition number 11 so we can get there. Give the American people back their liberty. Let us become the vital people with the vitality that we have had in the past to take us to the next level of our economic destiny. Mr. Speaker, that is our charge, that's our responsibility, and that will be the call and the cry of the American people come November. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman make a motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move the House to now adjourn.
The question is on the motion to adjourn. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. Accordingly, the House stands adjourned until 10:30 a.m. tomorrow for morning hour debate.